And then I started experimenting with like chains and like glass in like a little cup.
It's the ins and outs, ins and outs with Mackie.
Hi, I'm Jamie Hernandez, and this is the Ins and Outs with Mackie, a show about awesome gear and awesome people. We'll be bringing you musicians, engineers, podcasters, streamers, and sometimes the occasional Mackoid. If you're new to the show, make sure to hit that subscribe button on your favorite platform to get all the latest Mackie updates as soon as they're out. And be sure to check in the description on how you can win an EM91CU Plus microphone. So our guest today is a Grammy-nominated platinum recording artist who has been playing drums, producing, and teaching for over 30 years. He's widely known for his work with supergroups Pendulum, Destroid, and EDM megastar Illenium. With almost 100 releases and multiple #1 records and sample packs, he is at the forefront of music production, drum technology, and has taken many producers to main stages with electronic, live technology, and connectivity. Welcome to the show, KJ Sawka.
Thank you, Jamie, and the whole Mackie team. It's good to be here.
Well, we're so happy to have you, man. You have been very busy, but let's start from the top. What is your first musical memory that kicked it all off?
First musical memory, playing on some pots and pans. Like a kind of a typical drummer start. And my uncle had a drum set in his closet. Actually had kind of like 2 drum sets. And my brother got a guitar. This was when I was maybe 11. So my brother got a guitar, and I'm like, I want to play music too. And my dad's like, oh, well, Tommy has a drum set in his closet. Maybe you can buy it off him. So I saved up my paper route money, and it was like $300, and it took a long time to save it up, but bought it with my own money, my hard-earned money, and I played until my fingers bled. It changed my entire life.
Maybe I'm jumping ahead here, but when did you realize that you had developed your own unique style of drumming?
When I was about 18, when I got turned on to electronic music, it totally shifted I was really into Primus and Metallica, Iron Maiden, Dave Matthews Band. All those bands have amazing drummers, and especially at the time, I was just like totally blown away. And jazz and Dave Weckl and stuff. And when I heard electronic music, I literally boycotted anything that had to do with guitar for like 2 years or so. And I was obsessed with the drum and bass beats, the boom-ka, 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 fast, really simplistic, and yeah, it blew my brain off.
So how did you first introduce this electronic technology to your setup? What was the first, I guess, tool that you began with?
That's a good question. Oh, I know what it was. It was the Yamaha QY70, this tiny little beat maker, like MIDI device. Yeah, it was only like that big, and it had a tiny little keyboard on it, and it was like my first way to create music. And because other than that, I just had my drum set, and that was it. And I would just stay up all night long, so inspired, playing this tiny little beat machine, just sitting on the couch writing songs, and then I'd pick up my friends' guitar, my bandmates' guitars and stuff like that. So I was fairly versed in holding the guitar and playing the different positions on the guitars and jamming and things like that. But yeah, the little QY70 was my intro to electronic music.
Wow. So when did music production start becoming a part of your life? You know, it seems like you've always had a bunch of instruments around you, and it was just kind of a step away always.
Yeah, I started, well, it was kind of the breakup of one of my bands. I was like, man, we wrote all these songs, and we've been practicing in our jam room for like several years now, and now we just have to like start all over again and write new songs. This is crazy. And I was like, how can I let that not happen? And so when I got this little QY70, I'm like, I'm just going to make my own music and start and play by myself. And then I started getting record players and things like that. And then I'm like, wow, I can be my own one-man band. And when I realized I could be my own one-man band, that's when kind of KJ Sawka started. I started off as DJ Sawka, as like a DJ, and then I'd show up to some house parties, and people were like, "Where's the drum set?" I'm like, "Oh, okay." So then I started having like a mixer and one record player, and then my drum set, and then they're like, "I thought you were just a DJ." So I'm like, "Okay." Then my girlfriend at the time, she's like, "Why don't you just change it to KJ Sawka, because it's Kevin Joseph Sawka, just one letter change." And then that stuck, and I've been making music as KJ Sawka since then.
The rest is history. So
Yeah.
do you think this is what kicked off your unique ability to really push the boundaries of dance music?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, because there was like, I graduated in 1996, and I got a computer just after that. Mac was kind of like just being born, like the little bubble Macintosh. I forget what
Yeah.
that was called. The color one came out. Then I bought the desktop when it finally came out, and that was colorful as well. And there was, the QI70 and the turntables and a couple keyboards I bought those several years before I even knew a computer existed, really. But before that, when I started getting into electronic music when I was about 18, I just wanted to recreate these beats that I heard, that boom, ga, boom, ga, boom, ga, 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 ga. And I'm like, I heard like Chemical Brothers and Crystal Method,
Nice.
and Fatboy Slim, and they were all like break beats, and all that stuff was and Amon Tobin and Square Pusher and Aphex Twin, and all those producers sampled like old jazz records and old funk records and James Brown and things like that, and the original Amen break and stuff. And I'm like, okay, so this stuff comes from real drummers playing, but why does it sound so different than regular like Dave Matthews Band? And I started putting on t-shirts and my wallet and things to like mute the drums. And then I started experimenting with like chains and like glass in like a little cup. And I'm like, so I started like reverse engineering these drum sounds. And in essence, I was compressing the drums really like organically, and making them more snappy, making them more dry. And then I'm like, wow, I'm starting to get a similar sound to these breakbeats that I'm hearing. And then I started playing the actual patterns and realized that these were like broken beats. And a lot of them were broken beats because it was like a 1 bar or half bar loop that was looped over and over and over again. But it kind of just stemmed from basic jazz and rock and funk and reggae and things.
That's awesome. You were already producing, like you said, manually. That's magical. As I mentioned earlier, you're widely recognized for your work with supergroups Pendulum and Destroid, and touring with EDM, megastar Illenium. How do you balance it all, KJ?
I ask myself that question every day, actually. Sometimes it's overwhelming to do too many things, or to do all the things that I'm doing. And like today, I had to sleep in a little bit. I usually wake up at 5, actually. Do a big run, do a workout. I'm in the studio 6:30 or 7. And I shut myself off quite a bit from emails and phone and everything so I can get work done. But yeah, with all these different projects, I also do like videos and constantly corresponding with companies like yourselves, and teaching people. I teach and mentor a lot of people. I have my Twitch that I'm always preparing like some new set for Twitch. And how do I do it? Boy, it's what I teach my students is I pretty much say I would advise not to do what I'm doing, and I would suggest you focus on just one thing, like creating your music under one brand. That's it. Don't join other bands or whatever, unless they're drummers. Drummers is just a little different because we love to play. We love to be on the stage. As Travis Barker says, I just want to play. And there's a lot of truth to that. Band stops touring. What other band can I join? Because I just want to play. But I have to mix that with producing, and sometimes I take on a few too many tasks and projects, but that's okay.
That's okay. You're passionate, but like you said, make sure you take those breaks and sleep in every now and then. You deserve it. What's your favorite thing about performing with multiple groups? I mean, there's a reason you push yourself to do it, right?
Yeah, definitely. I'd say the variety of music and the interaction with other humans, and the ability to learn from other people and to teach other people and offer my skills that I have and learn new skills. And I guess it's just fun, really. That's what music is at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Just fun.
So you're currently back in your beautiful studio, as we can see in front of us, and you've been touring with Pendulum, where you just headlined the Ultra Music Festival in Miami. You want to talk a little bit about that?
Oh, I sure do. Yeah, Pendulum is definitely one of my favorite bands to be in. I joined them in 2009, and a couple years before that, Rob Swire is our main guy in Pendulum, and we were talking on MySpace back in the day about collaborating, and then he just called me kind of out of the blue and just offered me the position in Pendulum, and which required me to move to London at the time. And my manager at the time, I was like, dude, I just got a call from Rob, and he asked me to join. He's like, you didn't say yes, did you? Because it's like, let's talk about it first, And I'm like, I said yes. It's like, oh my goodness. It was just a life-changing moment, and it was the perfect band and project that I saw myself doing at the time, because it was drum and bass, headlining main stages in front of tens of thousands of people. And my slogan was always drum and bass for the masses. I wanted to play these fast beats and this hypnotic electronic music that's pretty underground, actually, but I want to do it for really big audiences. Because back then, there was like at the rave or at the concert or festival, there was house music or rock music on the main stage, and then there might be a smaller, really small stage or a small room at a rave with the drum and bass. And they were doing it with guitars and everything, but anyways, yeah. So Ultra Music Festival we just did, and we rehearsed for about 3 weeks or so in London. Got 4 new songs in the set, and our rehearsals consist of basically programming and editing samples and putting samples inside my Roland brain and working on the mix like all day long for like 8-10 hours, and then we'll play the set like one time at the very end of the day, record it. Rob will go back, stay up like another like several hours mixing the set that he just recorded, and then we'll just do it all over again. We did that for about 3 weeks.
Wow.
And so much can go wrong in a Pendulum set. There's so much tech, and there's MIDI cables that turn into Cat5 cables, and everything is redundant, and there is just heaps of gear, and it worked flawlessly. And it's amazing when that happens, because I'm sitting there playing, and I'm not only like making sure I play the part as solid as I can. Mind you, this is like electronic drums, and like you can't really get the same finesse as like an acoustic kit. And if I'm slightly ahead or slightly behind, you can hear it. The drums are really, really loud in the mix. It's unforgiving. And then I'm also thinking and watching, is everybody okay in the band? A lot of times, even the guitar has so much technology, and all of a sudden he'll be like, I have no guitar. Like what's happening? So I'm kind of the hawk in the band. I can't help it. Kind of like a musical director. Rob and I team up on that, and it's fun. We both freaking love it. So Yeah.
Well, you're a pro, obviously.
It worked out good. Yeah.
You've done some extensive work with countless artists such as BT, you mentioned Amon Tobin, Andy Summers of the Police, and Michael Shreve of Santana. How did you
Yes.
create this strong network of yours?
Well, a lot of it started with Michael Shreve of Santana. I was playing this small club in Seattle, and we were like ripping drum and bass stuff and all kinds of effects. And I had these 2 ride cymbals turned instead of like a regular setup. They were turned on their side, and they looked like big concert crash cymbals. But I would be like playing them, and he was just like, "Who are you? Can I get lessons from you?" And I'm like, "Yeah, I teach lessons." And he's like, I'm Michael Shreve. I'm in Santana." And I'm like, "Oh my goodness." And I'm like, it was crazy. I'm like, well, surely the drummer of Santana wouldn't be asking for drum lessons. Maybe he's the keyboard player. So I'm like, "Are you the keyboard player in Santana?" Which, oh my gosh, so ignorant. And he's like, "No, I'm the drummer." And I'm like, oh my goodness, like the drummer is asking me for drum lessons. This is insane, of Santana. And so I taught him, and he wanted to learn how to play fast, like drum and bass. And back then I was playing really, really fast, like way faster than normal drum and bass. Normal drum and bass is about 170 to 176 BPMs, and I was playing like 200 to like
Holy moly.
220. It was ridiculous. It was almost like speed metal drum and bass, but with groove. Somehow there was groove. And so I started teaching him, and then he kind of took me under his wing a little bit, and he's the one that introduced me to Andy Summers. And Amon Tobin and I already had kind of a thing, but we met face-to-face at Michael Shreve's house, and Michael Shreve and I played on Amon Tobin's record at the same time. And then I played in a local band in Seattle called Tangletown, actually named after this little borough, sort of by Fremont, called Tangletown, where he lived at the time. And yeah, I did that for a long time. Most of my 20s, I hung out and was kind of mentored by Michael Shreve.
That's amazing. You've also performed on some pretty notable TV shows, if I can brag a little bit about that for you. Craig Ferguson, Jimmy Kimmel, and Ellen DeGeneres, just to name a few. How did you created this strong network. How did you land these other extraordinary opportunities?
All those were from playing with Mr. Blake Lewis from Seattle as well. He got runner-up on American Idol, I think it was 2006, the year that Jordan Sparks won. And in 2006, American Idol was a really big deal. And everyone kind of still watched mainstream TV. I never watched mainstream TV at the time. I didn't even know what American Idol was. And so we were already playing music, and he's like my best friend right now, and we have the project together and stuff. And he's like, "Dude," I'm like, "Yeah?" He's like, "I went down, my friends took me down to try out for this thing called American Idol, and now I'm like on the show." I'm like, "Okay." I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "I'm in LA right now, and like I already went through like 3 different auditions, and I don't know, I think I might make it." I'm like,
Wow.
"Whoa." And then he started to be on TV, and they started airing those auditions, and he's like, "What should I do?" I'm like, "Man, you just got to sing your butt off, like practice in the hotel room as much as you can." And then so I assembled the first contestant band to play on the American Idol, because back then it was just the American Idol band, who were totally ripping set of musicians, and they were like the backing band. But we were the first contestant band to join a contestant on stage, and then he got second place, which was perfect for him because he didn't want to get first place and kind of be molded into the actual quote unquote American Idol. He wanted it to, so we were able to make our own music with a little bit of influence from Clive Davis and other people. No big deal.
Big deal.
Yeah, man. I hardly even knew who Clive Davis was. I was just so ignorant with mainstream. and maybe people I should know, I guess. I was just so tunnel visioned into drum and bass and everything that I was doing. But it turns out it's not a bad thing to be tunnel vision, to get good at something, I guess. That's why I teach my students, don't live under a rock, but you need to have some tunnel vision to be a pro. You got to be a pro at something. And then we did a big tour. We played on all those TV shows. We did the ball drop in Times Square for like 1 million people. I think that was 2006 or 2007. Yeah, it's crazy.
And you and Blake just released a really groovy new tune called Afterglow that I just cannot stop listening to.
Nice. Yes. Thank you.
The private language, so make sure you all check out the private language. Mm-hmm. So you mentioned earlier how you're proudly sponsored and partnered with multiple music manufacturers. Why do you think sponsorship is so crucial for a musician?
Well, when I was a kid, I was there was these music magazines, like Musician's Friend or Sweetwater, and it's just like eye candy. I'm like, oh man, look at all this music gear, and so I slowly bought a new drum set from and outgrew my uncle's set, and I called up the music store one day and I'm like, hey, how can I be sponsored? And the guy actually was like so angry with my question. He's like, you just want to get free gear and you got to like make something of yourself and like join a big band and like become popular. It's the only way. Like you're not going to get free gear just as a kid sitting in your basement. Like he kind of chewed me out. I'm like, wow. I'm like, okay. But I'll never forget that conversation. That's totally true though. Like you have to have some sort of visibility. And so that's why I tell, like so many people are like, hey, can I get a license for Ableton? Or can I share your license for Isotope and all that stuff? I'm like, well, no, for one thing, because I can't do that. But you can create a relationship with them, and I'll show you how. And but if you don't have any tunes out, and if you're not doing gigs and stuff, it might be a little harder. But it still might be possible. Like, it's human to human interaction. So I really value that. And it wasn't, as I learned, it wasn't just calling up the music store and say, how do I get free gear? But it was from that guy kind of chewing me out, made me realize all kinds of different things that I need to do to show value, as opposed to a take mentality. It's a giving mentality. Like with this piece of gear, now I can give all this content and all this music to other people, and as one of the many benefits, it's a byproduct that I'm evangelizing about the gear too. And so far, it's just been so fruitful. And it's a really big part of my life, actually, and part of my career, having all these partnerships.
That's awesome. Do you think it's harder or easier now that there are so many musicians out there that have access to every bit of social media?
That's funny that you said that, because I was just watching the bass player Wooten.
Victor Wooten.
Victor Wooten, yeah. Oh my goodness, it blew my mind watching this video. And he was saying when he grew up, he didn't have access to all of the players that he loved and was inspired by. Like, it was really rare that they would come around for a clinic or a gig, and it was also really rare that when they did come around, he was actually able to go see them. And it's totally different now. Like, it's possible to get a hold of your heroes, especially if they're active on social media. Like U2 and Metallica, and like, they're not checking their Instagram DMs.
They're not. Well, dang, man.
Right? But like Victor Wooten and other musicians who do a little teaching, do some interviews, and are accessible or approachable, it's possible to meet your heroes and things. And I'm totally accessible and approachable. I've got a Twitch, and it's almost like a one-on-one for some people when they're sitting there watching the Twitch, and connected to that is a Discord where people can literally direct message me. And so yeah, I guess it's a good thing. It's just the way it is, really. I did enjoy being less connected to people for the, I guess, in relation to time management, because it can take a lot of time answering messages and things like that. But I do know that it's potentially changing some people's lives, and like, that's pretty cool. Yeah.
You mentioned your Twitch channel, which you are on Mondays, Wednesdays, Fridays, Saturdays, every days. You want to talk a little bit about that? What can people expect when they're subscribed to your channel?
Yeah, Twitch has been fun. I started it when the pandemic happened, and it's taken off. I got about 2,500, almost 3,000 subscribers or followers, and people can subscribe to that. And it's a fun way for someone to just like donate $5, $10, or $15 a month to watch as much content as they can absorb, really. And I'm sitting right here in my seat on Monday, Fridays, and then on Wednesdays and Saturdays. I stopped the Saturdays for a little while because I'm touring now, but Wednesdays I'm on the drum kit, and I have a bunch of cameras around me, and it's a lot of gear and a lot of fun, and I'm showing people how I make songs and how I make beats, and sometimes I'll dive into my drum modules and show people how to layer sounds and stuff. And with all this stuff, like, I'm mixing and utilizing the MPC or the MCU. I'm using my push controller over here, playing keyboards and stuff, and got multiple angles on the cameras, and it's a lot of fun, actually. It's a real win-win because people get to see it and be entertained or educated or just hang out. But it forces me to make music. Like, every Monday is a timer beat, so I have to make a brand new song in 1 hour from start to finish, which is totally challenging and fun. And then Wednesdays, I just shred on the drums, and sometimes I won't play drums like the whole week, and then so I get to shred for like 2 hours, and it feels so freaking good. And then Fridays I do a deep dive with production, and usually a lot of times it's going from I dive into hour number 2 and number 3 in that new song, and then I'll pull up a bunch of new plugins, and that's where I do a lot of live tutorials, and I'll chop those up in tutorials and then share those tutorials online, and then tag the manufacturers and stuff. And that's the Twitch channel. Yeah.
Awesome. How do people find it?
Twitch.tv/KJ Sawka.
Perfect. Thank you for sharing that.
It's the ins and outs.
Takes.
Ins and outs.
Takes.
Well, I think it's a great time for our ins and out takes, which is a rapid fire of random questions. Are you cool with that?
Nice. Fire away.
All right, man. Well, you go to a party and you get to do karaoke with one of your favorite artists. Who's singing with you, and what are you singing?
Oh, man. It's got to be Phil Collins, hands down.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's a good one.
Phil Collins is my all-time biggest hero. And in the Air Tonight is definitely the biggest one. And Missed Again, or I don't know if that's the name of the song. I do that one in karaoke. And then there's a couple of, but let's just say In the Air Tonight, but with Phil Collins. That would be insane.
I love that answer. So Reggie Watts mentioned your drumming style in Joe Rogan's podcast.
And then there was like a bunch of cats in my own town on our jam nights that purposefully would set up a kit where it would have 2 or 3 snares, like this guy KJ Sawka, monster drummer. So it'd be he's playing like drum and bass producers making drum and bass beats.
How did that feel to hear him talk you up like that?
It felt so good. Reggie Watts is from Montana, but grew up in Seattle. and we had a bunch of weeklies and one-off events in Seattle where we played so much together, and we would just improvise the entire time. And he's incredible at improvising, singing, rapping, comedy. He has the little Line 6 green
Yeah, the
pedal.
DL6.
Yeah, and he just loop his voice and just like do this sick stuff. And at the time, I had this huge rack of looping gear, and yeah, that was before I got a computer. So that was way back 2000, early 2000s, really 2001, 2002, 1999, I think, way back. And we've kept in touch, and I lived in LA for a while, and I think he still lives there, and we saw each other at a few gigs, and it's 20 years or so. And to hear him say that stuff on Joe Rogan, a bunch of people texted me and were DMing me. They're like, dude, Reggie Watts is on Joe Rogan. He just mentioned you. I'm like, whoa, no way. So that was pretty amazing.
That's awesome. If you weren't in the music industry, what's another career you would have liked to explore?
Martial arts, 100%. So when I was a kid, I was super into martial arts. Hapkido was I got my black belt in, and then I got into kickboxing and boxing and jiu-jitsu. But when I was pretty early on, when I was 18, I was like, my hands are feeling this fighting pretty hardcore. So, because like in Hapkido, there's always like wrist takedowns and things, and it wasn't necessarily from like punching. It was from the wrist movements. And I was like, it's either drumming or martial arts. And I was like, martial arts, I mean, all I can really do is compete for probably a really short period in my life and get severely banged up, possibly. Or open my own school and teach. And it would just be a life of teaching martial arts. Do I really want to do that? And I'm like, hell no, I'm going to play drums on big stages. And then I picked up martial arts years later, but then I had to stop again. I started to get pretty competitive, and I started hurting my hands again. I'm like, okay, no more.
It sounds like it has to be one or the other in your case.
Yeah, but now I keep up the stretching exercises and things, but no more punching stuff for me, unless I have to.
For now. What has been one of your most memorable collaborations?
I'd say collaborating with Mr. Bill, actually. I love Mr. Bill. And we did a whole tour together. And we did a bunch of songs. And we did, I think it was just the Collab Alliance, this song called, the Collab Alliance Season 1. And we put it all on YouTube. And it was with a bunch of other great artists. He's an incredible person, incredible producer, and a lot of fun. And it's probably the most memorable.
If you could tell your younger self something, what would it be?
If I could tell my younger self something, it would be listen to my heart, listen to my gut, and be as kind as possible to every person.
It's a great answer. And my favorite question to ask people, who would play you in the movie of your life?
Brad Pitt.
Everyone says that. That's so funny. That's great, though. I can imagine him with the hair. That would be great.
Every time I look at him, I think it's me.
Is there anything else you want to share? Websites, upcoming shows? I know you released your Brain on Drum sample pack you want to pitch?
Oh, definitely. Yeah. I truly believe that every producer on earth and drummer who dabbles into electronic music should get my brand new pack called Your Brain on Drums. You can get it at dawnnation.net/KJ Sawka. And if you're an Ableton user, then it's perfect because there's tons of Ableton racks and things like that in there. And if you're not, there's still loads of loops and samples in there. And And if you get it now, you have a chance to get a really sweet deal on my masterclass that's coming out, which is going to be amazing.
Amazing. Also, you're on SoundCloud, YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, all the big ones. So make sure you all subscribe and follow KJ to see all of the awesomeness he's been up to.
Yep, I'm easy to get a hold of. I'm just KJ Sawka pretty much on everything.
KJ, before you go, who do you think we should invite onto the podcast next?
Ooh, that's a good question. Let me think here. You should invite. Well, I can think of all kinds of people, depending on like. I'm just thinking of maybe who you invite, or maybe if they're live musicians or producers, or a really fun person is Mr. Ill Gates. And I know he has some Mackie stuff, and he has a really big teaching school, and him and I have done tons of collaborations together and workshops and clinics and things like that. And he is so wicked smart and is a freaking ball of fun. You guys would have tons of fun. So
Well, that's
I nominate
nice.
him.
We'll make sure to tag him on that nice message you just said.
Yeah.
Well, once again, thank you so much for being here. This has been so much fun. I'm so excited for your career and looking forward to seeing what's next for you, KJ.
Thank you so much.
Well, again, I'm Jamie Hernandez. This is the Ins and Outs with Mackie, a show about awesome gear and awesome people. We'll be bringing you musicians, engineers, podcasters, streamers, and sometimes the occasional Mackoid. If you're new to the show, make sure you hit that subscribe button on your favorite platform to get all the latest Mackie updates as soon as they are out. And be sure to check in the description on how you can win an EM91CU Plus microphone. Until next time, Mackoids.
It's the ins and outs with Mackie. It's the ins and outs.
Blew my mind watching this video.